Hi all, welcome to the new academic year. I know it is highly unfortunate to welcome you to the new academic year in this way, but to say highly unfortunate, that's all. Almost all the educational institutions in the world now switches to this online system, and we are not different. See, the efficiency of this system it is still unclear. But my point is, or my suggestion is, this is actually a very positive change. 5 or 10 years down the line, definitely this online system will become a major part in the academic activities. This pandemic actually triggers that change or catalyzes that change. That's all. Anyway, I'm not going into that much details on that aspect. First of all, I will introduce myself because for mechanical engineering students, I think everybody is familiar at least with my face because you saw me in the staff room. But for triple E students, I think I am totally new for you. Many of you may even don't know my name. So first of all, I will introduce myself. I am Dr. Vibin Goban. I am working as the assistant professor in Trinity College of Engineering. Uh, I completed my UG from SIT College of Engineering, my PG from College of Engineering Kindi, Chennai campus, and my PhD from Karunya Institute of Technology and Sciences. All my degrees are in the field of manufacturing, so basically I am a manufacturing engineer. But today I am here not to teach you a subject relating to manufacturing, but to teach you professional ethics. When you heard this name, you may wonder, oh, this is a pure theoretical paper. What are we going to do in this online classes, or how I am going to teach you through this video lecture? First of all, I want to say one thing. I am not going to teach you because this is not a paper to teach you. There is no technical contents involved in this system. There is no principles or big laws or anything like that. What I am going to do is I will share many experiences. I will gather many experiences and I share those with you. That is what I will do through all these sessions. Normally in the first lecture, most of the faculties will give a detailed explanation of the subject, about the syllabus, the examination pattern, how the subject is going to help you in your future academic as well as the professional career. But in this session, I'm not going into any of those aspects. That I will explain in my future sessions about the subject, about the syllabus, how this course will help you in your academic career as well as in your professional career. That all aspects I will cover in my coming sessions. Today I am going to narrate you a story, a real story, or it's an event. At the end, I am not going to relate that event with this subject. I am just sharing an event and how this event is important to this subject that I will explain in the next session. Okay. In your opinion, which is the most complex engineering system ever built? Everybody have their own opinion. I would say it is space shuttle. So here I am going to narrate an event that happens in NASA. So I am going to take you back to 1970s and 80s. In 1970s, NASA decided to design and develop a reusable launch vehicle. A reusable launch vehicle actually consists of three main parts. One is the orbiter, the other one is the solid propellant booster, and third one is the liquid propellant booster. During the takeoff time, all the boosters will work. That is both the solid as well as the liquid propellant boosters work, ignite. But this solid booster is mainly designed to give maximum thrust during the takeoff time, because maximum thrust is needed during the takeoff time to take the orbiter into the Earth atmosphere. So once the takeoff is over, or after the initial phase is over, this solid booster will be detached from the orbit and it is thrown back to the Earth. Normally it lands in a sea where it is collected and it can be reused. The solid is repacked, the fuel is repacked and it can be reused again. That is why it is called as a reusable launch vehicle, because almost all the parts are reusable except this liquid propellant booster. That is not reusable in a launch vehicle. Okay, so this is the basic function of the solid booster. Solid booster have a role only in the takeoff time. After that, it is detached from the vehicle. Now, in 1974, NASA awarded the contract to design and build a solid booster to Morton Thiokol. That's a private company based in America. They have some experience in this field, that is on designing and developing the solid booster. So, NASA awarded the contract to Thiokol company. So many engineers from the Thiokol company are involved in this project. It's a massive project. They developed a design, made several modifications, and finally in 1976, NASA accepted their design. One of the key aspects of this solid booster is a joint. It's also called as field joint. I am not going into much of the technical details because this is not a technical paper. So I am roughly giving an idea on that design only. So the one key aspect is the field joint, and in order to seal the joint in this design, they use O-rings. O-rings. The purpose of the O-ring is to prevent the hot gases from escaping into the atmosphere. But this O-ring is made of a special type of synthetic rubber, but that material is not heat resistant. So in order to make it more heat resistant, some form of putty is added into it to make it more heat resistant. Okay, so this is the technical aspect of these O-rings. Even in the early stages itself, engineers face lot of difficulties with these field joints. Erosion of O-rings is one of the major issue faced by them. They made a design, they made several modifications, several improvisations. That is quite usual in engineering because the first design may not be the best design. Seldom do things work in the first time. So they made a lot of improvisations, but still the issue is not fully resolved. The first failure of this field joint is reported in 1985, 1 year before the actual schedule of launch. The name of this project is Challenger, the reusable launch vehicle that is named as Challenger and is supposed to launch on January 1986. Now the engineers again worked or again redesigned the field joints and they come up with a design which doesn't need O-rings. Instead, they use steel billets. But one issue they face is if they are using this new design or new alternative, they can't meet the scheduled launch because the launch is supposed to take place on January 1986 and by that time the new alternative won't materialize. So the Thiokol company decided to go on with the O-rings for this time, and for the next project they can switch to this steel billet. I want to mention about the political climate in America at that time because that is also very important considering this event. This happens in 1970s and 1980s when the world is at the peak of the Cold War between America and Russia. Not this Russia but the old communist Russia, communist Soviet Union. Reagan was the president in America at that time. At that time, many of the NASA projects got delayed for many reasons. So there is immense political pressure on NASA to complete their projects because then only the government can showcase something to the public because they are heavily funding on the space missions. That time America was heavily funding on the space and military, so they want something to showcase to the public. And also another thing is that European Space Agency is also working on a similar project at that time. If this project, this Challenger project got delayed, then they will win the race. NASA didn't want that. So they also feel little bit urgency regarding this project. So the launch date was approaching and those days were not smooth for NASA. The first thing is regarding the weather. So, the weather forecast came that a cold wind, a strong cold wind is approaching that region at the time of the launch. So, NASA postponed or NASA delays the launch by 2 weeks. Then the weather prediction came that the cold wind is not approaching, it changes the direction, but they don't want to prepone the launch because they already invited George W. Bush. He was the vice president at that time. They already invited him to the launch, so they don't want to prepone because he is a strong supporter of the NASA. So they don't want to prepone the event. But another uncertainty came is that the weather forecast again predicted that the cold wind is coming on the new scheduled date, and they also predicted that the outside temperature will go down to -6 degrees Celsius. That was a very cold time, that was a very cold temperature. So considering this extreme cold situations, the NASA arranged a meeting with all the shuttle contractors to discuss the scenario. Alan McDonald, he was the director of the Thiokol company. He was in charge of this solid booster project. He strongly advised to postpone the launch because he was very much worried about the extreme cold condition, definitely regarding the O-ring design. He was not sure how this will function, or is there any failure at the extreme cold conditions. So he strongly advised to postpone the launch. At that time, two engineers gave a detailed presentation on the uncertainties that can happen at this cold weather conditions. So the Thiokol company, they also suggested to prepone the launch date. But NASA, they are not satisfied with this thing. So they want to go on with because there is some immense pressure on NASA, political pressure on NASA. So they want to proceed with the same launch date. But the Thiokol company, they are strongly opposing the launch date. The engineers pointed out that the lowest temperature at which a launch happened previously was 11 degrees Celsius. But now the temperature is -6 degrees Celsius, which can cause a drastic difference. But interestingly, in the design, Thiokol company mentioned that the lowest temperature at which this O-rings or the field joint will work properly is -5 degrees Celsius. So that is what NASA is also asking. In the design, you mentioned it as -5 degrees Celsius. Now the temperature is just -6 degrees Celsius. Then why can't we proceed with the launch date? But the engineers, they are not at all happy. And also, what NASA is pointing out is that there is no strong correlation between the temperature and the erosion of the O-rings, because there is no history available, because as I already told, the lowest temperature at which a launch happened was 11 degrees Celsius. So there is no data available to for this correlation. So what NASA is saying that because of this non-availability of the data to correlate the temperature and the erosion of the O-rings, we can proceed with this launch date. But the engineers, they are not at all happy with that decision, and at this time Larry Mulloy, he comes to the scenario. He is the senior project manager at the Thiokol company. He supported NASA at that time. At that time, he told to Alan McDonald that take off your engineering hat and put on your management hat. This has become a very famous phrase in the later days. So he also advised to go on with the launch date, and finally a decision is made. So NASA decided to proceed with the launch date. Based on that, there is no data available to show the correlation between the temperature and the erosion of the O-rings. Even if such an erosion happens, or even if the O-rings fails, then a special oxide will be formed after the combustion, and that will take care of this erosion of the O-rings. That is what NASA finally concluded, and they decided to proceed with this launch date. Finally, the launch date came, Actually, the weather prediction was that the temperature on that day will be minus 6 degrees Celsius. But on that particular day, the temperature goes down to minus 14 degrees Celsius, which caused a huge difference. Because of this extreme cold conditions, because of this extreme weather, during the takeoff, the O-rings didn't seat properly. The putty, because of the putty that was made to make it more heat resistant, that also didn't work properly because of this cold temperature. So what happens is that the gas leakage happens. The hot gas from the solid booster after the combustion escapes. The liquid propellant booster was placed very near to the solid booster. So what happens is that these hot gases enters the liquid booster and finally a strong explosion happens. 7 astronauts who was inside the Challenger was died. This became a huge disaster in the history of NASA. In the aftermath of this disaster, a strong investigation team was formed by the Thiokol company, by the NASA, by the government and everybody. In that investigation team formed by the government, Richard Feynman was also a member. Probably you know Richard Feynman. If you don't know Richard Feynman, just go to the YouTube and type Richard Feynman lecture videos. That was very famous. Those are all very famous videos. He's a great Nobel Prize winner physicist. So please watch his videos. Anyway, Richard Feynman, he was also one of the member of that investigation team. There was a very famous press conference in which he demonstrated to the public what exactly happened on that date. He practically demonstrated that thing. He took a sample of that O-ring and he bent the O-ring and then released. It works properly. It goes back to its original shape very soon. So it works properly. Then what he did is that he put the same in the cold water and then again bent it. He put it in the cold water for some time and then again he bent it. So it goes back to this original position only after some time. Because of this cold water, because of this low temperature, this O-ring loses its resilience. This causes the damage. Even though it loses the resilience only for few seconds, but that few seconds caused this disaster. He publicly demonstrated, Richard Feynman publicly demonstrated this thing in the press conference. That few seconds make a huge difference. The loss of flexibility in that few seconds cost the life of 7 astronauts and millions of dollars for the NASA. This is a major disaster in the history of NASA. But who is responsible for this? Is the engineers, or is the management officials, or the NASA, or the government? This is an accident. Definitely this is an accident because nobody wants this to happen. The NASA, they didn't want this to happen. The government or the Thiokol company or the engineers or the management officials, they didn't want this to happen. But this happens. This disaster happens. Now the thing is how this disaster is related to professional ethics. That I will explain in the coming session. That is more a matter of discussion. So we can discuss that in the coming sessions. So that's for today. Please watch this video. I am Vipin Govan signing off. Thank you.